All right, in today's episode of Lamination Technique, we're going to be replacing the front hot rollers on this PL 1200 HP. If you guys have any questions or comments about this procedure, please post down in the comments below and I'll get to them as soon as I can. And if you guys need any lamination products or are interested in purchasing a machine like this, check out OregonLaminations.com. I'll post them down in the description below. And if you guys need any parts for these machines, like the rollers that I have right here, you guys can also order those from OregonLaminations.com. All right, guys, first thing we want to do is remove these side covers on both sides. And to do that, you're going to have to remove these four Allen head screws that are here and this handle. This handle is pretty much just goes like this. Now, so when we do this, you guys want to make sure that the rollers are in the closed position. So as you turn this clockwise, you'll feel them go down and up. So just make sure that they're in the down position like this, and just give this a nice little jerk and turn it counterclockwise to pull this off. And what we're going to do is we're going to remove each of these screws here. You should get one of these Allen wrenches with your rollers. They give you some grease and some bushings and E-clips in there that you guys will see here shortly. Okay, so this side doesn't have a handle and it's just going to be the four screws here. You have those removed, pull the side cover off, and there you go. Okay, next thing we want to do is we want to take these nip adjusters out. These adjust the spring tension on the rollers for each side, front and back. So we're going to have to remove the bars that hold these rollers in. We don't want any spring tension interfering, so we're just going to take these completely out on all four corners. All right, there we go. All right, guys, so we're on the right-hand side of the machine here, and you can see these wires that are coming out of the rollers. They come out of the center of the rollers. These are the wires that power the heaters. And the first thing I'm going to do is I'm going to disconnect these wires that are coming off these pickups right here. So you're going to need a soldering iron. This is kind of like an old school one. You guys can use any type of soldering iron. And we're just going to heat these up and take a pair of needle nose pliers and just pull them off. Okay, now that we have those wires removed, I like to take our Allen wrench again here and just put in these little holes here. You're going to back these off, and that takes some of the pressure off of these brushes here, and it makes the install a little bit easier. You could take them out too with a flathead. There's a flathead that's back here in the back that you can pull out and take the brushes completely out. But I think for the most part, this is going to help us just kind of get them out of the way so we can get these sleeves off here. And you can see they'll kind of poke out a little bit and you kind of push them back. Now, if you guys look closely back here, you're going to see these set screws. And we're going to take those off next. Right back there. See that little black set screw? There's that one. There's it right there. You can see this one coming down here. Right there. So we're going to remove those set screws, and these are going to pull off. All right, got those off now. All right, guys, so staying on this side over here, next we're going to be looking at this bar that runs across here. Now, this bar ties in both of the top rollers, front and rear. And if you look here, you can see here there's a spring here. Back over here on this side right here, there's another spring. And this one's kind of loose already. So if you remember, we took the screws that were coming down from the top here and took those out to get all the pressure off here, because it's going to make it easier to get this bar on and off. Now, I'm going to tell you guys right now, this is one of the harder, it's not one of the harder procedures to get it off, but putting this bar back on is one of the hardest procedures of this install. But I'm going to show you guys how I do it. It's not that bad once you've done it a couple times. And even for your first time using this video to do this, it's going to make it pretty simple. So the first thing we're going to do is start with the 7/16 socket and put a little extension on it like this. We're just going to remove this nut here. Pull this bushing out too with it. So the next thing we're going to do is remove this C-clip right here. Now, don't worry about trying to save these C-clips, because in your little roller kit they give you, like I said, they give you the wrench and some grease, which I'll show you guys about later, and they give you new C-clips. These things are kind of a pain to get off sometimes, as you can see, but if you get a grip like I just did, just pull them all the way out, you'll stretch them out, and then they're kind of ruined. You can discard these. Okay, I think we may have it to where we can pull this off. You're kind of just going to slide it like this, kind of pull it out a little bit, and you'll feel the springs start to put tension on it. And you want that spring to kind of like fall behind the bar. Is kind of what I try to do. Like that right there. So I got the spring pushed behind the bar. We kind of want to do the same thing over here. The front end feels a little looser on this side, so be careful not to mess up any of these wires here. So I'm just kind of put up pressure, and I just kind of pull the bar out, and the spring will fall right below it. So important thing to show you guys here, these little guys here that fall out with the spring, okay, this is what those bolts, these right here, we took out of the top, these push down and then push the spring. So when we put the springs back in, we got to remember to put these back up in and then the spring, and then we'll push the bar underneath. But we'll get to that later when we start putting the new rollers in. Just kind of gently back that off there. And just make sure your wires on this side over here kind of getting pushed out of the way too. And there you go. You guys can just set this bar, just set it down below out of the way for now. And we'll come back to that later. And so we're leaving these back rollers alone. These are fine. And this is what we're going to work on here. Should be another, yeah, there's another C-clip here. So we're going to pull that C-clip off. We'll pull these bushings out, and that should be all the work that we need to do on this side. Okay guys, now we jumped over to the other side of the machine, and you can see we got the same kind of bar going across, and it's pretty similar for the most part. It's going to be a bit different. As you can see, there's only one set of electrical connections going in on this side. This is a thermocoupler. And as you can see, we have some brushes here, and I'm going to talk about those later when we install the rollers. But for now, let's get these taken off, and we're just going to use our solder gun again and take those loose. Start there. Okay, so same thing here. I'm going to loosen these up here. And now these brushes are a little different than the other side, and there's a chance that these may fall out. They're longer and skinnier. Sometimes they do. We can take them out when we take this little collar off here, and there's going to be a spring in there too. So just another thing we want to keep an eye out for. But I like to back these off. It just makes the process a little bit easier. And then let's see, if we twist this roller around, we can see our little set screw back there. So we'll get the set screw taken out. Pull this collar out now. And just be careful with these brushes. These little, those little gold things right here I'm talking about right here. So these are going to fall out, which is okay. Okay, I grabbed one here. Just set that in the bottom. We have this piece. Set that aside. And you'll see this side's really greasy, and we're going to talk about the grease a little bit later. Let's pull the other one out so we don't lose it. And remember, there's springs in here. They should be okay. They should sit tight there, but just keep your eye on them. Okay, the next thing I'm going to do is I'm going to get this chain out of the way. I went ahead and got some rubber gloves on because it's going to get even more greasier. There's a set screw back here. You guys can see. This is a 1/8 Allen wrench, I believe. Get this loose, and this will slide back and forth. Depending on how much slop there is in the chain, it's kind of hard to tell sometimes, but most of the time, if we just take this one, this is the drive gear off the motor. If we just take this one loose, then we can slide the whole chain off. There we go. And we'll just drop that down to the bottom, leave that be for now, and we'll get back up here. Now we're going to take this bar off, and as you can see, there's another C-clip right here. So let's get that C-clip off. Then we're going to take our 7/16, get this nut off, and then we'll pull this bar off. Same thing on this side, little bushing in there. Take that out and get that off to the side. Okay, so we basically have the same thing on this side. You guys have the springs here. We've already taken the bolts on the top to relieve the pressure. So we're just going to kind of scoot these towards the back as we pull the bar forward. And I mean, that's kind of only, you know, the best way I can explain this. And it may take some practice. Right there, that just poked through. This one here, it's just about popped over. Just gonna kind of push that back, fall down, and now we can just pull this bar off here And again, we're just gonna set it down to the side. Remember, you have your wires here for the thermocoupler. Just make sure that you don't damage those at all. These are tie strapped here. Just cut this tie strap, that way they'll fall down and we don't have to disconnect them or anything. And again, we can just set that right there. All right, getting back into it here, we can see we have another C-clip to remove. So let's get that out of here. Discard that. You can even pull this bushing out if you like. Remember, there's a washer there, so don't forget that. And now you'll see this plate here. So we're gonna go to the other side of this chassis, and we're gonna remove this plate, and we'll be able to pull the rollers out next. Okay, you can see our plate right here. We have 2 screws here and here. We don't need to remove this one, just these 2 here. Okay, and as you can see, this has opened up our keyhole now to slide our rollers out. All right, guys, now that we have everything apart, basically all we need to do is pull the rollers out now. So as you can see, we have the keyhole open here. And we can push the roller through the keyhole, which gets it past this outlet here. Now we can simply just pull up and pull the roller out. For the bottom, same thing. Pull it up, push it through the keyhole as that one slides out, and pull this out. Okay, guys, this is our box of rollers that just arrived from Oregon Laminations. You guys can check the links below. You guys can order these rollers right off their website. It's pretty awesome. So as you can see, this is a top and bottom set, both rollers. And there is a difference. The top roller has a thermocoupler in there, so just be aware of that. You're putting the bottom roller where the bottom roller goes and the top where the top goes. There is installation instructions in here, but of course this video is way better than those installation instructions can be. So you can see here, they give you a little care package here, like I was talking about earlier. And you can see they give you extra C-clips, they give you the grease, they give you some bushings and washers and a couple screws if you need be, and the Allen wrench is in there too. It's right in here. So yeah, nice little kit, which is pretty handy. So you can see we have the top roller here. All right, guys, so we're kind of doing the same thing now in reverse. So I have the bottom roller here, and we just want to make sure that our thick wires are going to this side. And that's where the relays are, over here on this side. And that's where our big thick wires are going to go, and that's going to feed power to them. So same thing. And just be careful. This is a brand new roller. You don't want to nick it or scrape it in any way. And some of these metal parts are kind of sharp. So be careful when you're sliding in these holes and when you're getting everything aligned, because you do not want to damage the new roller. So just carefully slide it in that hole. On the other side, slide it in the lower hole, push it through until it clears. Just set it down nice and easy. For the top, same thing. We got our little wires going on this side, and we have our fat wires going on this side. Pretty simple. Be real careful pushing it in the keyhole here. Push it in far enough to clear and slide it back over. And there you go. Let's start putting it back together. All right, guys, so we'll just go back to this side here, the motor chain side, and we'll just kind of gonna do things in the reverse order. There might be a couple things that might be different, but first we're gonna slide this bushing over with this washer here, and we're gonna get that up in the sleeve. There's gonna be a little groove right here, and we're gonna put a C-clip on there right now. Let's grab one of your new ones here that they gave you. All right, that's on there. Then we can push this all the way back, and that's gonna be its position there. All right, so if you remember our springs here, they're gonna go in like that. Here's the little upper part that's gonna sit on top. So when we put the springs in, we wanna put them in like that. But let's get the bar up there first, and then we'll put the springs in. We wanna slide these wires up here through the bushing. You'll see them come out here. Get that, slide it on here, and then push this over. Get this lined up. Now we got this started, and we're over this stud that's sticking out here. So don't go all the way back yet. We want to make sure we have enough room to slide our springs up behind the bar here. Okay, got that in the hole there. Then I can take this flathead just kind of lift it up onto the bar, if you guys can kind of see that. Okay, it's on there. Okay, now I'm not going to push this back anymore or get it in there anymore. It's on there. It's not going anywhere. I'm going to go to the other side now and get the other spring in, and then we'll push them in together. Got the needle nose pliers helping me out here. Got my finger underneath it back here to hold it in there. Now it's in there. Now I'm going to hold this in here. I'm going to try to push this bar in a little bit more. Actually, I can just push with my fingers because this front one's a little looser. All right, now I got it in that little groove there. So basically now what we need to do is just work this bar back. You can see the springs, how they're kind of just sitting there. And we're just gonna kind of push this bar back and get it into place. All right, see these springs there now. This one just needs to be pushed forward a little bit. Just take the screwdriver and that's it. You see it just fall down in there now. So there we go. And we got the back one in there now. Okay. So that's all good to go. Make sure there's nothing binding. And now we're going to put this little bushing and nut back on here. So I like to tighten this down. You'll feel it stop. You don't have to get tight at all. Then go and back it off maybe a quarter to a half turn, because you know this needs to slide up and down pretty easily. All right, going back to the back roller here, we have another groove here and we have this washer. We're gonna put this washer on. We're gonna pull out another one of our new C-clips and put a C-clip in that groove right there. Just wanna push in there, make sure you hear it. You're gonna either hear it or feel it click in there. Okay guys, the next thing we're gonna do is get our coupler installed here, back on here. You guys can see the spring right there barely poking out like I was talking about earlier. And we have our little brushes here that need to go back in there. So we need to put those back in there and then slide this on. Yeah, and then we'll solder these wires. These wires right here, let's make sure and pull these out before we slide this coupler on, because this has to go through and these have to come out, and then we'll solder them to here. Okay, we got that slid on there. We can let those brushes go now. To get that on there, tighten this down. Now remember, there is a flat spot on the shaft here, so make sure you get it in the flat spot. The best way to do that, you can kind of get it loose and you can feel it. You slowly tighten it down as you jiggle back and forth, and it'll get it tightened perfectly on the flat spot. Go back, push these up, and tighten these down. They don't have to be that tight because these are plastic, so keep that in mind. When you guys tighten this down, pretty much this shaft is flush with this inside recessed part here. If you guys are wondering like how far in and out you guys put that, it's pretty much gonna be flush there, and that should work out pretty good. If not, if you guys have problems on the other end, you just come over here and loosen this coupler up, and you guys can adjust the rollers to get them perfectly centered. Now this one, you know, down below, obviously this is locked in place. So once this gets locked in place and pushed up against here, you guys can just eyeball the top one on top. Make sure that this is pushed all the way against here, and then tighten this down. That's what I did. All right, let's get the chain put back on. And again, this is just gonna be reversed. And remember that you have flat spots. You kind of feel that flat spot. If you don't take the set screws all the way out, you can feel where they start and stop. So something like that. And that way we don't have to adjust any of the motors or anything. So that worked out pretty good. All right, we'll get these set screws tightened. And next we're gonna solder these wires up here. All right, need to strip these little wires here. You want to be really careful when you're stripping these. Scissors seem to work the best. Kind of just, now we're going to tin the ends of these wires, and then we're going to tin the tips here to make it a little bit easier on us. Just getting a little bulge, a little dab on the end. All right, now that we got these soldered on, we're pretty much done with this side. Let's go to the other side and get that hooked up. All right, folks, now we're to the other side, and we're going to get this side button back up. You can see we got our roller sticking out here, so we'll take and pull these wires out. And we can go ahead and put our bottom bushing on. We'll put our washer on. And then we'll put our C-clip on. And again, you'll hear that snap into place when you get it. Okay, so now what we're going to do is get this top bar on there, and we're basically going to do the same thing that we did on the other side, which is we're going to get it started up on the shafts, but not all the way. Make sure you can clear these wires here, and then we're going to push the springs in behind them. So I'm just using my index finger underneath behind the bar. I don't know if you guys can see it there. And just using the needle nose pliers to guide it in the hole right there. Our flathead screwdriver in here. I just screwed it right in the little groove there, and that's it. And it'll be a little tight. You just kind of rock it back and forth and make sure that it gets centered up here on that bushing there. So just get it a little snug again, just like the other side. Back it off about half turn. All right, guys, now we're going to put our little couplers back on. And remember, there's flat spots on the shafts. Make sure that the rollers are pulled over all the way towards you, and that's back. And this side's going to be a little easier because these brushes are a little bit easier to deal with. So again, you're gonna pull these bushings back as you slide this coupler on. So make sure it's pushed all the way back against the bushing back there, and then you can tighten it down. So on this coupler here, folks, you're going to see that there's a space in between here. You don't want to push them all the way back because then it won't line up properly here on the brushes. So kind of do the same thing that we did on the other side on the top one. Is just the end of this shaft, just kind of make it flush with this recess area back in here, and that'll get you right there in the ballpark. So it's right there, flush. I'm just going to tighten the set screw down now. Like I said, if you wiggle it a little bit as you're tightening it, you will get the set screw the most flattest spot of the flat spot. And snug it up. It's good to go. Tighten up these brushes and we'll be done. All right, guys, now we have to solder these wires onto these prongs here. It's going to be basically the same thing we did on the other side. So these come pre-stripped. I'm going to pull the insulation off these wires. We're going to tin these wires with our soldering iron and tin these prongs, and then we'll get them soldered up. Got two nice connections there. We're all hooked up. We're almost ready to fire this thing up. We got one more thing to do, it looks like, which is put this last C-clip on right here. There's one more C-clip that goes here. All right, guys, we're ready to plug this thing in and give it a little test run here. And what I like to do when I first plug these back in after putting a new set of rollers on is I put the temperature to 100 degrees, and we're going to turn the power switch on. And that should, if everything is correct, bring our temperature up to 100 degrees. Now, there is these little thermometer stickers here that you can use that come on the rollers themselves to kind of help gauge. And you always want to bring the heat up slow and make sure that it holds the heat and doesn't go way past 100 degrees. I also have here an infrared thermometer, which you can use to shoot the rollers and see exactly how hot they are. While we're waiting for this to heat up, you guys, we can put our little side cover back on. Remember this little guy? So we're going to put that on while we're waiting, and next we'll put these top screws on. All right, so I've slowly brought it up. I've got it set at 200. It's holding 200 degrees. We can go forward a little bit with these. And you can see, see these stickers, they just kind of go black at 200 degrees. I think they're supposed to go in increments or whatever, but I don't know. Like I said, I never really had good luck with these stickers that they put on here. So the best way to do it is just to shoot it and see. So you can see one's a little hot, one's a little low. I mean, it's within 10 degrees, so we're good. We're set at 200. It's reading, just above 200. So we're good to go. I believe that this is working properly. So now we're going to get these top screws put back in. We're going to put the side covers on. And before we put the side covers on this side, I'm going to show you what that grease is for. All right, so we've got our screw here. Like I said, this pushes those springs down that we put in there and puts tension on these rollers. So what I like to do is I like to go all the way down until they bottom out. Right there. And then we'll count out 1, 2, 3, and go 3 turns. And that should put you pretty close. Okay guys, going back to the dielectric grease. They usually give you a packet of this when you buy the rollers. It comes with those C-clips and the extra bushings and whatever, and the washers and the little Allen wrench here. So as you can see right here, there's a little like foam pad that rubs around, you know, this little coupler here. And it keeps these brushes lubed, I guess you could say, or seated properly on this coupler here. So if you ever have problems with your thermometer jumping around, sometimes you'll get erratic readings on this thermometer. It's because these brushes here are not making proper contact with this coupler here. So the best way to do that, you guys can clean these. You can actually resharpen them too, and put a bunch of dielectric grease, not a bunch, but put a good scoop of dielectric grease on that little pad there, just like that. So we'll put it up there and kind of just get this all gooey. And you'll see as that turns, it'll kind of wipe it on there and accumulate there. And that's what you want. It'll give you a proper temperature reading. All right, guys, got this all buttoned up. Got the side plates put back on. Got the adjuster put back on here. And this thing's ready to laminate. Everything's looking good. Got it all cleaned up. It's ready for the customer to come pick up. So if you guys have any questions or comments, post them down below and I'll get to them as soon as I can. If you guys have any lamination needs, look up OregonLaminations.com. Again, I'll post those down below in the links. Thanks. Until next time, lamination technique.